So this was the president in the Roosevelt Room, and he's talking about putting a cap on ending surprise medical bills when you maybe get a service out of state or outside of network and you have no idea what the bill is going to be until later when you get it, and it's much higher than you expected. He talked about the fact, too, that prescription drug prices are falling for the first time in 46 years, and they're going to push them lower. And he also talked about the fact that he's committed to protecting pre-existing conditions as well. I mean, healthcare, this brings you back. It's such a perfect juxtaposition because at first we're talking about the political nonsense, and then here's a real issue that people at home really care about, and both sides need to come together and work on.
And it's one of those issues that while it's tough, I mean, you're an economist, you can deal with medical pricing from an economic perspective, but your head will explode if you try to do that. Nevertheless, it affects real people. I mean, real people have medical bills, surprise medical bills. There is such a disconnect between pricing of medical techniques and medical procedures that you get these days because there's so many middlemen between the consumer and the provider. You got health insurance, many different layers of health insurance. You have government, Medicaid, Medicare. If you kind of strip out some of those layers, find out a way of putting closer contact between the provider, the doctor, the hospital, and the receiver, the patient, if you squeeze that level, squeeze all those middlemen out of it, you get a much better sense of pricing. That's what needs to be done.
Don't forget President Trump, when he was running for president, he actually agreed with Hillary Clinton on the notion that the U.S. government should negotiate drug prices on behalf of Medicare. That hasn't happened during his time, but we have had a record number of generic drug approvals out of the FDA. That's helped bring drug prices down. Transparency is the next step, but this is the #1 issue for voters. NBC Wall Street Journal survey in May found that 24% chose health care as the top priority for the federal government, and it was only 18% on immigration and border security. Job creation was even lower than that. This is how he's trying to get ahead of the issue of health care, because the Republicans, without the repeal and replace, they don't really have a plan.
Well, and they really don't want to deal with it. Look, when the president brought this up a few weeks ago, and he said, look, we should be concentrating on what it looks like to protect pre-existing conditions. You heard him say it there live right now, just a couple of seconds ago. Republicans will always protect pre-existing conditions. Senator Mitch McConnell, leader of the Republicans in the Senate, said, no, we're not doing health care right now. The president is spot on about focusing on this issue for all of those polling results that you just gave, but also because that's what matters to people. And he's been out there. He just came back from a rally. He knows it.
Can I add one more thing real quick? Kellyanne Conway, when she joined his campaign in 2016, she told me face to face, she said, this is the #1 issue, is health care costs, because people are going to get their premium increases for the following year right before they go to the polls, and they don't have anything to run on right now in terms of the Republicans.
November, new enrollment.
My husband's a doctor. I'm part owner of a medical practice, and this is something, the surprise billing that comes up. I've had it. I think the president was opening my mail. I got one the other day. This is actually very smart for the president to do, because this is an issue that left or right is most important, not just the polling that's showing now, but when you look at the exit data after the midterm elections, the Democrats won those 40-plus seats largely on health care as the #1 issue.
I had a family member who passed away, and the health care center denied, the insurer denied coverage, and they tried to come after me for the health care costs for somebody who had already died.
Wow.
He's getting ahead of it, though, 18 months before the election. That is smart.